Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday we had discussed types of research, but the time was not enough to cover all the types of research which we commonly know. This is why today also in one of the lectures, in this lecture rather, we would be trying to cover the remaining types of research. We have already discussed many types of research. The we begin with the qualitative research. What is qualitative research? It represents a non-quantitative type of analysis. This qualitative research is qualitative phenomena. Phenomena which cannot be measured in quantitative terms. It means or it implies phenomena relating to quality or kind. It is also called motivational research, which is an important type of qualitative research. This research takes into consideration the research related with attitude, opinion, that is the research which has been designed to find out how people feel or what they think about a particular subject, individual, institution. It is also qualitative research. This type of research, qualitative research, is especially important in behavioral sciences. Qualitative research is based on the qualitative data. Suppose we want to study the satisfaction level of students from the teaching in the class. So, the students will not say that I am 5 kg satisfied or 10 liters satisfied or 15 meters satisfied. That is absurd. So, here comes the qualitative data. The students may say, I am very much satisfied. I am satisfied. I am indifferent, neither satisfied nor unsatisfied. I am unsatisfied and I am very much unsatisfied. So, the response of the students would vary from one extreme to the another extreme. One extreme of high satisfaction to the another extreme of high dissatisfaction. Although they have not given their opinion in terms of the quantitative measures, quantitative data, but the students who are the respondents, they have responded in such a way that they have communicated their level of satisfaction with the teaching. This comes into the purview of the qualitative research. Another example, suppose the the researcher, a researcher wants to study the level of satisfaction of the electorates, of the populace, from their representative, be their member of parliament, be their member of assembly, or be their representative in the local self-government. We have these days these studies very much coming into newspapers. So, the newspapers would collect the data from the electorate who constitute the electoral roll of the constituency. They would select a sample, representative sample, and then they study the level of satisfaction of the electorates of that constituency from their representatives. That is the purview of the qualitative research. So, studying attitudes, opinion, some phenomena which cannot be measured in quantitative terms, that is, no quantitative data can be generated, then this kind of qualitative data is generated, and the research based on these are called the qualitative research. I hope I have been able to make it clear. Then comes the quantitative research. The quantitative research is based on the quantitative measurement of the quantitative variable. The variables here are measurable in the normal measuring units. So, and this is why this is applicable, this type of research is applicable to the phenomena that can be expressed in quantities. And of course, it uses a statistical analysis. So, for example, we want to study the consumption behavior of a village or consumption behavior of a city or a small country, say consumption behavior in Qatar, a small country. Then this is a quantitative research, because all the variables, whether income or consumption, their data is generated, is available in the quantitative terms. Similarly, there are various other types of researches which we are working upon. Suppose we want to study the impact of fertilizer upon the productivity of, say, any wheat or rice. So, here all the variables, whether they are dependent or independent, they are measurable in the quantitative terms, and this is why it is a quantitative research. If we want to study the relation between foreign investment inflow and the exchange rate, this is also a kind of the quantitative study, because all the variables, whether dependent or independent, are can be collected, generated in quantitative terms, and then a statistical analysis is utilized to study this. Yet another example we can take, say, even if we want to study the relation between poverty and crime, then also it is a quantitative study, because first we have to define the concepts poverty and the crime. This the poverty data can be easily collected, and the crime data can also be collected from the reliable sources like police station, and then both these are utilized to study this relation, the relation between poverty and crime, if there is any. So, this is the quantitative research. I hope now we have the very clear distinguish we can clearly distinguish the difference between qualitative and quantitative data. The next is the conceptual research. What is that conceptual research? This type of research is related to some abstract ideas theory. It is generally done by philosophers and thinkers to develop new concepts and new theories. It challenges existing theories and generates new insights, normally used in philosophy, social sciences and humanities. So, for example, the concept of ontology, what is that? It is a branch of philosophy that studies existence. This is an example of conceptual research. Kuhn's paradigm, those who have studied philosophy must be knowing how important this theory of paradigm is. So, Kuhn's paradigm, what is it? It is the set of practices that define a scientific discipline at a specific time. So, Kuhn's paradigm also is a very ideal example of the conceptual research. In conceptual research, no practical experiment, no field experiment is involved, no sampling and other kind of thing. It is a research which philosophers and thinkers keep discussing and creating, generating new theories, proving the fallacy of the old theories. This kind of a type of research is conceptual research. I hope it is clear. Then comes the number of empirical research. The empirical research relies only on observation or experience. It is purely data-based research. And another characteristic of this research is that it is capable of being verified by observation and experiments. This is also called the experimental type of research. In researches, the researcher first sets up the working hypothesis. Once he sets up the working hypothesis, then he proceeds to collect the data. Once he collects the data, then he applies the statistical analysis, rather tests the hypothesis, does the hypothesis testing, either to prove or disprove the hypothesis. And that way the empirical research goes on. These empirical researches are characterized by the experimental's control over the variables under study and manipulation of variables to study the effects. We have already discussed in the previous lectures how control is operated. Control is a very important part of the scientific research. So, in empirical research also, control is operative, and to study the impact of one independent variable upon the dependent variable, all other independent variables are kept under control. So, that is the empirical research. The next is the causal research. This research explains the causes of social phenomena. What causes what? This research aims at establishing a relationship between variables, dependent and independent or independence. How one is the cause of the another. How when one variable occurs, then the other will occur. How with a change in the one variable, the other variable would change. That is how when with variation or change in independent variable, the dependent variable changes. That is the study done by the causal research. For example, relation between income and consumption. Here consumption is dependent variable and income is independent variable. So, how a change in income affects the consumption would be studied by the causal research. Because of course, when income rises, consumption would rise, and when income declines, consumption would decline. That is simple process. We are not going into any depth. So, here the cause of consumption, that is income, and variation in this income is being studied to affect its impact on the consumption. Next, relation between qualification and salary. Is there any relation between qualification and salary? If higher salary gives higher qualification attracts higher salary, does lower qualification attracts lower salary, and how a change in the qualification affect the salary? So, This is the subject of study which is called the causal research. Relation between age and productivity. If when we are young and when we are in full steam, then we have more productivity. Once we become old or grow old, then our productivity is reduced. So, if there is a negative relation between age and productivity, what happens? With the increase of, with the change in age on the productivity, that is the topic, that is the subject of problem which will be studied by the, or which forms the part of the causal research. Then we have the comparative research. What is that? The comparative research is where different units of individuals, communities, groups and countries are put under the comparative study. Various characteristics of those two phenomenon are studied, and that is called the comparative research. For example, the study of comparative constitution. That is, suppose if you want to have a study of the comparison between India's constitution and United Kingdom's constitution, or the constitution of United States of America, we want to have a comparative study of the constitutions of these countries. That would be the part of the comparative research. Or we want to study the comparative agricultural practices, because even within our country there are mountainous areas, there are states which are full of mountains, and there are states which are plain areas, totally plain areas. So it is natural that the agricultural practices would be quite different, because the landscape is different. So, if we want to study the comparative agricultural practices of, say, within the country, or a comparing from our country to another countries, then also it becomes a part of the comparative research. Or say comparative marriages among different communities. So all over the world, people have thousands of systems of marriage. Even in our own country, we have so many various kind of marriage systems. In various communities, in various states, and if we want to study, to have an insight into this comparative marriage system among, say, different communities, or in different states, or in different countries, then it becomes a part of the comparative research. Or the, for example, another example, comparative political systems. The political system, if we want to study India's political system with, say, United States of America or with United Kingdom, then it becomes a part of the comparative research. Or suppose if we want to study the political systems in Jordan, a political system in Kuwait or in Qatar or say in Iran, that what we find at in Iran also, in Kuwait also, in Jordan also, there are elections, regular elections, but then a researcher who studies this deeply would find that although apparently elections are taking place regularly, but political systems, say in Iran or in Jordan or in Kuwait, are different. So, if we are studying the political systems, comparative political systems of the countries, then it becomes a part of the comparative research. You can have thousands of examples of both in social science and sciences about the comparative research. Next is the longitudinal research. This is related to the study of a phenomenon or a problem over a period of time. So, if we do study a phenomenon for a period of time, then it becomes a longitudinal research. So, for example, if we do a study India's trade with Gulf Cooperation Council countries, say in the 21st century, or say between 2015 to 2025, or between 2005 to 2025. So, it is a period of time, and this research would be termed as longitudinal research. Or if we study India's relations, political relations, say with Oman, in the 21st century. So, 21st century already one quarter has passed, it is about 24 years. So, we can have a study of at least 20 years, and that would be constituting a longitudinal research. Then what is one-time research? One-time research is when the research is confined to a single time period. It is unlike the longitudinal research. In one-time research, the period is limited to a single time period. So, if we are working on India's trade with Saudi Arabia in 2021, so if it is so, or say 2023 last year, if it is so, then it is one-time research. Then comes the cross-sectional research. In this type, the study covers a broad range of phenomena at a single point of time. That is called the cross-sectional research. Communalism, casteism and regionalism in 2021. These are broad phenomena and we are covering in a single period. So, that is the cross-sectional research. Then we have the prospective research, where the research follows the same body of phenomena forward through a period of time, that is present to future. For example, a study of COVID, and reverse to it is the retrospective research, which is in which the research follows the body of phenomena working backward from the present over a period of time, that is present to past. For example, malaria in Africa. Then we have the field setting research. The field setting research depends on the environment, that is the field in which the research is done. Agricultural research, it is field setting research. Again, laboratory research. Next is laboratory research, where all researches are done in the laboratory settings. Even some of the agriculture researches can be carried out in lab also, and lab is a very important part of the experimental research. So, if the research is being done in the laboratory settings, then it can be called as laboratory research. Then we have the simulation research, where in this type of research an artificial environment is created either on a laptop or desktop, and then the study is done. They do not have to go to the field, they do not have to go to the lab, and they are doing research on their laptop, on their desktop. They are manipulating the variables and studying the impact of manipulation of the variables on the phenomenon, and that way doing the research in the artificial environment. That is called the simulation research. Simulation research these days are becoming very popular because of low expenditure and also because the modern laptops and computers, they are capable of handling large size of data and large number of variables also, which is manually difficult. So, that is an advantage with the simulation research. So, a research which is done on the laptop and desktop by creating artificial environment is called or is termed as a simulation research. Then there is the clinical and the diagnostic research. Such researches are done through case study method or in-depth approach to reach the basic causal relations, like the physicians, the doctors doing research on the patient. So they go through the in detail, and by finding the by doing the diagnosis, they prescribe the solution. So these were some important types of researches which we have covered. There is no end to it. Based on various characteristics, the researches are in fact defined of certain type. However, whatever we have discussed covers almost all types of researches. Thank you very much. I hope I have been able to make it clear to you. Thank you again.